What's up, guys, and welcome to your topic of today, which is overcoming depression and tips on how you can start to bring yourself out of it. Listen, I personally have been through severe depression, and going through that, it taught me a lot about different ways to come out of it, understanding your mind. It taught me a lot about myself. So I want to open up the floor today and, just give you guys a safe space to say me too and learn different ways you can bring yourself out of it. So let's jump straight in. So, if you know me, probably from TikTok, I'll put the link and everything below. You know that today's topic is overcoming depression and tips on how we can begin to get out of it, right? I'll put the link to all of my social media accounts below so you can join the family. Also, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel and press the notification button because we're building this empire together, guys, brick by bit, one viewer at a time. I am creating this community for you guys to feel safe and open up the floor to these conversations, right? So let's jump straight in. I'll give you a little background on me and how I, got in my depression state. First of all, I became really, really, really depressed last year back in 2020. And it was a collection of a lot of different things, actually. First, it was the loss of a relationship. It was really traumatic for me. But then it was also family issues. And it was work. It was me trying to discover my purpose. It was so many different things piled into one that ended up just all hitting me at once. So I got really down and out. I got depressed. And there was a point in time where I didn't even want to get out of bed. Like, I was also contemplating suicide. And a lot of people don't know this about me because I'm always the type of person who is bubbly and have all this energy. But it was seriously a dark time in my life where I didn't know how to say I needed help. And I also didn't know what was going on with me because I'd never experienced something this heavy before. So it was very hard for me. And, I still have moments where I feel like I am coming out of it. And I still feel it. I'm still in my process of coming out of it. But I still feel it, from time to time. It's just not as severe. And I want to give you guys a few tips on what you can do to start to bring yourself out of it and how I brought myself out. So, first and foremost, what I discovered is depression it's sometimes, it is a chemical imbalance, but other times it's a lot of things piled into one, right? It's a lot of things that goes unaddressed. Like if you have trauma from your childhood or trauma from you just multiple different things, when we continue to suppress those things instead of addressing them, one day we wake up and we just feel this heavy feeling that doesn't allow us to be the same person that we want to be. And it was a hard pill to swallow for me. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with the quote, if you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are depressed, you are living in the past. And you're at peace when you are living in the present. I had to dive really, really deep into that quote. And I started reading a lot of self-help books to pull me out of it, right? But one book in particular is, surprisingly enough, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That was one book that really helped me. But also, what really got me through is the Potter's House of Denver. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Sarah Jakes Roberts or Pastor Teray, but I became extremely spiritual during this journey because I had to get really close and develop a relationship with God because He was my saving grace through it all. I wouldn't have made it out of my situation without building an established relationship with Him. He was my strength. If I was leaning on my own strength and my own knowledge, I would have been very, very SOL, to say the least, man. But Yeah, so how I started to pull myself out, I started listening to a lot of positive messages, but also I just started to realize like this depression was not rooted in just one specific situation. I had to dive in deep and recognize where this was coming from. And yeah, the relationship ending was traumatic for me, but I realized that breakup, it broke something into me. Like it pulled back so many layers that caused me to go through this evolution, this spiritual awakening, right? So it triggered a lot of my past wounds because prior to that relationship, I was also in an abusive relationship that was, physically abusive. And that lasted 3 years. And then, fast forward a few months, I found myself in this relationship that was psychologically abusive. And, surprisingly enough, the psychological abuse lasted longer and it was harder to get over than the physical abuse, which was crazy to me. But anyway, I had to dive in deep, and what I discovered in my journey was a lot of the past trauma that we experience stems from our childhood, right? Like growing up, I love my mother, I love my family. I didn't, go through things that were the worst of the worst, because I know people they've gone through, very traumatic events. But for me, it was always hard for me to open up and be emotional because my mother wasn't always the most emotional person who knew how to express herself. So I took on a lot of that emotion, and instead of me speaking up about how I was feeling, I felt more comfortable keeping it inside of me until one day I just broke. And I feel like the breakup in that relationship was the straw that kind of broke the camel's back, because I'm always the type of person to just keep going and just keep moving. So when I like I said, I started to realize that, there were days where I didn't want to get out of bed. I was like, wow, like I am in some deep trouble because I live on my own and it's just me, right? So if I don't get up and I felt, right? I felt that if I didn't get up and I didn't keep going and I didn't keep pushing, that everything was going to fall apart. And that's why I want to touch on this topic, because what people tend to do instead of addressing their depression is they get into this mode where it's always go, 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 when, they don't even recognize that that's part of the problem, right? Some of us don't slow down long enough to realize the trauma that has been inflicted onto us. It's trauma. Regardless on if it's big or small, trauma is trauma. And also what I discovered is, when you try to avoid those feelings inside of you just for the sake of not wanting to rock the boat, or not wanting to admit that you're not the strongest person that everybody perceives you to be, it only hurts you worse. It hurts you. So I think one of the best things that we can do is just admit to ourselves that we are broken. We are, hurting more than we like to let off, and begin to allow people in who can relieve some of the pressure inside of us, right? Because you're never alone in a situation. You just isolate yourself in these moments where it's really, really intense, because you don't want to feel like a bother to people. But what you have to understand is there is light and there is dark inside of all of us. And I feel like there's this imbalance when we think that we're not light all of the time. You understand? When we're not at our best or being there for everybody like, we think we're supposed to be, we think that there's something wrong. When the reality of it is, there is good and there is bad in everyone. There's a yin to every yang, which is why in order to start to come out of that depressive state, we have to accept that there is both sides and we have to give equally to both. And that was a hard pill for me because I didn't know how to fully address that darkness, and it was more comfortable for me to run away from it. It was comfortable for me to run. It was comfortable for me to avoid it. But eventually whatever you run from will catch you anyway. And that was hard for me. That was very hard. But yeah, when you are discovering yourself, and that's all this is, you are on a journey of discovery. And one of the things that you can begin to do when you are depressed or you find yourself in these moments where you feel like it's too hard is to get out of your own head. I said this in my previous video. When you are in your head, you are constantly coming up with all these different scenarios that could be true, couldn't be true, regardless of the fact. Your mind can run rampant, especially when you're not all the way there and all the way here, right? So what I mean by that is when you are always in your head or constantly thinking, you have to take a step back and realize your thoughts create your reality, right? So when you are constantly thinking, wow, I'm depressed, wow, I'm sad, I don't think I'm gonna live, or constantly thinking about different ways that you can take yourself out, that can become very overwhelming, almost to the point where you become tunnel vision on seeing nothing but darkness. And you forget that there are people around you who actually want to help. You forget that, again, that yin and that yang, there's always light and darkness. But you become tunnel vision on just that darkness, and it makes you forget, if there's ever going to be any way out. And I want you to understand something. There is never going to be a point in time where your darkness is going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing does. Nothing. For every good, there is bad. For every good times, there are bad times. There is an equal give and take with everything. So nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. If you can't get out of your own mind, I want you to at least hold on to that thought, because that was part of my saving grace too. That was part of my saving grace. I had to, like I said, develop that relationship with God, but also realize that this is all happening for a reason. If I'm depressed, it means that I have been suppressing a lot of things in my past that is now coming to the surface that I can't run from anymore. And I have two options, right? I can either go back to a place where I feel numb and go tunnel vision, or I can address that truth. I can allow that release to happen so that I can figure out different ways where I can shift into that light. So no, nothing bad lasts forever. Nothing. I don't care what's going on. Nothing lasts forever. So, you have to hold on to that truth and realize that, this is something that, this is a storm that was meant to, it was meant to happen. All storms are for a reason. For every rainbow that's created, it's created by rain and and sunlight. It's, again, that yin and that yang. So if you ever feel like you are depressed, like I said, remember the quote: if you are anxious, you're living in the future. If you are depressed, you're living in the past. And in order to find that happy medium, you have to be in the present. And what that means to me is, there is a lesson in everything. And I know when you're in the middle of it, you don't even probably want to hear anything that I have to say, because trust me, I get it. Like, when you're in the middle of it, it's hard for anybody to feel like, oh, well, it's hard to be around that light, because it's a reminder to you of who you think you used to be. And that's what tricks you the most. You think that in order for you to get back to this happy place, you have to get back to the person who you used to be, and that's not true. That's not true. Who you used to be is what caused this problem to occur in the first place. So if you ever think that taking a couple of steps backwards is going to get you to your mountaintop, you're sadly mistaken. You're sadly mistaken. And I just want to say, I don't say that to hurt you. I say that to wake you up, so that you recognize that the old you is gone. And it's for a reason. The old you and the way you were operating was autopilot. You were going numb. You were not feeling. You weren't actually addressing those feelings, you became very good at suppressing your emotions. And I had to develop a serious relationship with, like I said, my God, because he helped me to discover who I really am and my strengths. And one of the greatest tricks of the enemy is an idle mind. He will trick you and make you forget that, like I said, not only do, this is something that will pass, but he will trick you into thinking that what you're going through has no value when it does. Everything that you're going through is preparing you for when you do get better. When you make it out of this on the other side, you're going to be so much stronger and so much wiser and so much more self-aware, so that you can pick up on the times where, okay, yeah, I'm not okay. Okay, yeah, those are my limits. Those are my boundaries. Or, even if it is a chemical imbalance, like, these are my triggers to what is causing this pain. And, it's a sad, and I understand, that grief that you go through, because when you're in it, you just want to get out of it. But you have to understand, the valley will teach you more than the mountaintop. And sometimes you have to go through those peaks and those valleys in order for you to get out on the other side a stronger version of you. Just remember, guys, whatever it is that you're going through, no matter how hard it is, understand that you are never alone. And if you can pick your head up long enough to recognize that there is a yin for every yang, for every darkness there is light, you will understand, when all of it is said and done, that this is something not to break you, but to teach you and to mold you into a better you. So, make sure that you don't close yourself off. Don't close your eyes in the middle of what you're going through. Open them, address it, and heal it in order to feel it and stop going numb. And you'll be fine. Trust me, when I made it out of it, like I said, I'm still coming out of it. But now that I'm not so deep in that, I can look at it from a higher perspective and realize that I'm no longer who I used to be, and I'm proud of that. And that's one of the greatest gifts that you can get when you develop a relationship with God or a relationship with yourself. You realize that you have to love you enough to fall apart and know that you're going to come back together strong. So be blessed, guys. Go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube and like the video. And I am hoping that you guys know that this is always a safe place for you guys to open up the floor to this conversation, and know that, I'm here. And if no one has told you today, I love you. So I'll see you next time, guys. Have a good day.